Welcome everyone to Fundamentals of Kabbalah and Chassidut. We are either at the very end of our series on Ma'aseh Merkavah, or there'll be one more class. We will see as we proceed. I'm hoping to finish it tonight. So what we're going to do tonight is we have spent a number of months going through Ma'aseh Merkavah. We've also discussed the connection, the synergy between what's called Ma'aseh Bereshit and Ma'aseh Merkavah, the secrets of creation and the secrets of the Chariot. We have focused on the first chapter of Ezekiel, and then we expanded it to the first 11 chapters of Ezekiel. Then we showed how, in many, many different ways, Ma'aseh Merkavah is much more than just the vision of Ezekiel. We went all the way back to Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, all the way back to the patriarchs. We brought many different Talmudic ideas, Kabbalistic ideas. Tonight, what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce many new ideas on subjects we've discussed before, sometimes at length. But here we're going to, we're going to introduce new perspectives from Kabbalah and especially Chassidut, to see some of the same ideas that we've been studying. So we're going to go back to like the basics of a new perspective, perhaps, on what exactly is Ma'aseh Bereshit and Ma'aseh Merkavah. One of our classes delved extensively into the connection between these two mystic traditions. So Ma'aseh Bereshit is obviously based on the 7-day account of creation, 6 days, and then the first Shabbat, and then the second telling as well. This is Ma'aseh Bereshit. And of course, there are thousands, millions of innovative ideas encoded in the letters and the words of the creation, Torah cosmology, especially in the last generation. There's been an incredible amount of writing about modern physics, quantum physics, cosmology, and seeing its source right in the account of creation, Ma'aseh Bereshit. But here at a little deeper level, so we have the text, and we have the sages giving us, like, call it the inside information. But then there's a whole other strata of the more mystical ideas. And one of the foundations of Ma'aseh Bereshit is the idea of yesh mi'ayin, creation ex nihilo, something from nothing, which according to logic is illogical. How can you have something come from nothing? We've explained that at length, but still, that is one of the secrets of Ma'aseh Bereshit, of truly understanding the idea of something from nothing, what that nothing means, the Ein Sof, the infinite one. And even more than that, the idea of continual creation. Not that the account that we read was a one-time account, but that every billionth of a second, the entire creation is being recreated. And so here are the secrets of time and space and infinity, all wrapped up into the secrets of Ma'aseh Bereshit. The only name mentioned in the first account is only the name Elohim, And Elohim is always associated with nature, because the gematria of Elohim is 86, which is the same as HaTeva, the all-encompassing idea of nature, Teva. So what is Ma'aseh Merkavah? What does it add to this? Ma'aseh Merkavah, as we've discussed, but here just to make it very, very clear, this is call it the inside framework, the inside fabric of not just the physical universe, but the spiritual universe as well. And the mirror image of physical reality and spiritual reality. And that's why only in the second telling of the story of Bereshit is the name Yud-Ke Vav-Ke introduced. The first time around, it's only Elohim, which is nature. But the second telling introduces the name Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, which are 4 letters. And as discussed, it's one of the secrets of the number 4 running through Ezekiel's vision of the Merkava. And a deeper understanding of Ma'aseh Merkavah is how God reveals himself in reality, and especially through the divine soul in general, and specifically the divine soul of Israel. These are the secrets of Ma'aseh Merkavah according to Kabbalah and Chassidut. So therefore, it's, as we've discussed, it's as if Ma'aseh Bereshit morphs into Ma'aseh Merkavah. I always do this in this class, have to sneeze, and somehow I avert it. One second. If it's not clear to everyone, I'm not in the best health right now, so you'll bear with me. Now, a new idea that we have not discussed up to now is the idea that we have 2 types of light, 2 types of, call it dynamics, of how not just light, but energy works, God's revelation works. That's what's called Or Yashar and Or Choser. Or Yashar is straight light, considering from above to below. So this is obviously the workings of creation. It's all coming from Hashem. And it's coming down, Or Yashar. Ma'aseh Merkavah is what's called Or Choser. It's what we do with this light and the returning light. Now, obviously, it's also dependent on God. The vision of Ezekiel was the beginning says that the heavens opened and Ezekiel saw visions of God. So these were being produced from above, but were very, very dependent on the prophet's ability to make sense of it and experience it, and eventually to record it. So that's Or Choser. And this is very similar to the written Torah is Or Yashar. It's coming directly from God. The oral Torah is considered Or Choser. It's what we do with the written Torah, the way we understand it, the way we delve into it and develop it. So here we're talking about the relationship between the workings of creation and the workings of the chariot. The Arizal, among many, many of his revelations, is the idea which we call now relativity. We always associate that with Einstein, his theory of general relativity, and the breakthroughs that he was able to reveal to the world that changed our entire view of how we experience the world, what the world is, how it works. But I learned from Rav Ginsburg, where he says that any idea that will come into the world will originate in a Torah idea. And so he explains the teachings of the Arizal, approximately 500 years before Einstein, had very clearly this idea of relativity. And this is where we see the way that the Arizal dealt with the Sfirot. That until the Arizal, Chachma was Chachma, Bina was Bina, Dot was Dot. All of the Sfirot were in a certain way one-dimensional, like Ma'aseh Bereshit. They were, you get what you see. The Arizal began to reveal that within each sphere is all the other Sfirot. Within each world are all the other worlds. This is what we dealt very early in the series about fractals and holism, that holographic, the idea how every detail of the whole can be found in every detail itself. So the Arizal, in many, many different ways, showed how everything is not one-dimensional or two-dimensional or even three or four. He just opened up how everything is within everything else. And so Rav Ginsburg says that with this in mind, that we can relate to the Kabbalah until the Arizal was what we would call Ma'aseh Bereshit. It was dealing with the inner dimensions of the Torah, but relatively on a more simple, natural way. When the Arizal came around and revealed what he revealed, Kabbalah after that took on the aspect of Ma'aseh Merkavah. It became more and more the inner dimensions and the inter-inclusion of everything within everything else. Everything had to be seen now in a holistic way. And then he said that when the Baal Shem Tov came, and he revealed really a whole new way to look at the Torah in Chassidut. So then it's like everything before the Baal Shem Tov now is like Ma'aseh Bereshit, and now everything after him is like Ma'aseh Merkava. So the idea here is that these concepts are always in flux. They're always developing. They're always morphing and transcending themselves into new forms. Now, we discussed previously that it was in our discussion of Rosh Hashanah, and that in a certain way, Ma'aseh Bereshit is until the creation of human beings. Once human beings came, Ma'aseh Bereshit moves into a different level of Ma'aseh Merkava, like we're explaining now. Constant development. And why is that? What is it about Adam is that the basis, the root of the word Merkava, one of the meanings, which we are going to discuss very shortly, is murkav. Murkav means complex, a system of complexity. And in relation to all other creations, human beings are considered murkav, complex. They say that the human brain is the most advanced computer in the world. So much so that, with all due respect to quantum computers and AI, well, it's the human brain that created those. And so we tend to now look at AI as the most developed intelligence, but it's created intelligence from the human brain. And so therefore, this idea of murkav, complexity, is at the basis of what Ma'aseh Merkavah is. That is what Ezekiel was shown, and we spent actually months discussing the symbolism, the metaphor, the level after level of depths of what he was being shown on every level, every world, and that is Merkava. It's murkav, it's complex. So having said that, when looking at the teachings of Kabbalah and Chassidut, we've mostly concentrated on the sages and early Kabbalistic books, Sefer Yetzirah, the Zohar, and the Talmud. Those are our main sources. Tonight, what we're trying to do is we're trying to add a whole new perspective here of Kabbalah and Chassidut's understanding of Ma'aseh Merkavah. And so the word that runs through all of the understandings of Ma'aseh Merkavah in Kabbalah and Chassidut, I'll say it in English, is the idea of permuting letters. Permuting letters. In Hebrew, it's called harkavat ha'otiyot, of arranging in more and more complex ways the letters of the Torah. Another way we say it is tziruf otiyot, which means that's closer to permutations. And this is the area we're going to enter into right now. So in Sefer Yetzirah, which, as we mentioned many times, is the oldest Kabbalistic text, in the 4th chapter, the 16th Mishnah, it says, 2 stones build 2 houses. 3 stones build 6 houses. 4 stones build 24 houses. 5 stones build 120 houses. 6 stones build 720 houses. 7 stones build 5,040 houses. From here, go out and calculate that which the mouth cannot speak and the ear cannot hear. It's a very enigmatic Mishnah. What is it talking about? So first of all, what are the stones and what are the houses? 2 stones build 2 houses. 3 stones build 6 houses. A stone is a letter. A house is a word. So now let's go back and understand it. 2 stones build 2 houses. 2 letters build 2 words. Aleph bet, bet aleph. You have the first 2 letters. Aleph bet can build 2 words. Aleph bet or bet aleph. Both of them are words. Av means father, ba means to come. 3 stones build 6 letters. 3 letters can be permuted in 6 different ways. We'll explain that more. That is so important because all Hebrew roots are based on 3 letters. And of the three letters, you have the two-letter shar or gate. But the basics is three-letter roots. All of Hebrew is based on three-letter roots. Those three letters can be permuted in 6 ways. 4 letters can be permuted in 24 ways. Now, the secret to this formula is simple. 2 houses build 2 stones. 3 stones build 6 houses. How did you get the 6? You take the total of the previous building, multiply it by the present. So the previous was 2 houses, multiplied by 3 stones equals 3 times 2 equals 6. Now the next one is 4 will build 24. How do you get that? Is because the last total was 6 houses times 4 stones equals 24. And onward, 5 will create 120 houses, but the previous one was 24. 24 times, it's a mathematical formula. But what it's trying to tell us is once you get to 7 stones, you're all the way up to 5,000 permutations. And then it said, well, if you keep on going, it's like beyond what the mouth can speak and the ear can hear. These are what's called the secrets of permutations. And in Kabbalah and Chassidut, so much of the inner dimensions of the Torah are based on understanding the permutations of a 3-letter root. And why that is important is because each letter is an energy force, an energy field. So if you have a word that's based on a 3-letter root, that word will represent that order of those letters. But now if you switch them, because within those 3 letters, you have 6 different, call it energy foundations. Each one will be a different word, and each one will reveal a different thing about those same 3 letters. This is the basis of all Kabbalah and Chassidut. And so that's why they say, when we're talking about Ma'aseh Merkavah, beyond Ezekiel's vision and beyond the secretive, meditative paths that allow us to reach and understand and access what's called Ma'aseh Merkavah, is this idea of the permuting of letters. The whole Torah is made of letters and words and verses, but each one of them is a minefield of energy. Each letter is just infinite in its energy that it is channeling, just like the Merkava. Every letter itself is a Merkava for God's will, light, and energy. And so now we can understand why Kabbalah and Chassidut put such an emphasis on this idea of, if we want to understand Ma'aseh Merkavah, we have to understand permuting letters. Now in Sefer Yetzirah, so it actually brings one example of what it's talking about. The Sefer Yetzirah is a very concise book. It doesn't have to bring more than one example. And what it says is, there is nothing higher than oneg. Oneg means pleasure. And the letters of oneg are ayin, nun, gimel. Or lower than nega. Nega is like a plague, a plague. It's the same letters as oneg, except a different order. Nun, gimel, ayin. So the Sefer Yetzirah brings an example, and it shows the same 3 letters can, if you permute them differently, they'll have opposite meanings. But those opposites there'll always be a connection between them. And that you have to work at, you have to learn, you have to delve into, you have to meditate, you have to contemplate to understand the connections of the letters. And that's why when we're discussing meditation, it's Jewish meditation. It has aspects of other types of meditation that are out there, no doubt, and they're legitimate and positive, but specific Jewish meditation is based on the Torah text. And the Torah text is based on letters and words. So now we can understand what Kabbalah and Chassidut is trying to teach us about what really is Ma'aseh Merkavah. So much more than, if we look at it now, the vision of Ezekiel is like, let's say we look at the electromagnetic spectrum. So on the electromagnetic spectrum, so let's say X-rays or gamma rays or ultra rays are these tiny little bands. The electromagnetic spectrum is enormous, and light itself. So it's the same thing that when we look at the Torah text, until we start delving into it, into the letters and the words that make up the text, we're only accessing a tiny little band of what is actually in the Torah. So this is a very, very, very important idea here. Now, since we're still in Sefer Yetzirah, it says in the second chapter, it says like this: 22 foundation letters. Now the he here is God. He engraved them, he carved them, he permuted them, he weighed them, he transformed them, and with them he depicted all that was formed and all that would be formed. Now, what is this telling us? It's telling us that the building blocks of creation, physical, material creation, and of course, the spiritual worlds, they are a combination of the Hebrew letters. Just like a scientist, if you would ask the scientist, what are the building blocks of the physical universe? They would say atoms, particles, elements, compounds. That is, and they're correct. But the two languages are saying the exact same thing. A letter is like an atomic explosion. Every letter is a building block of the universe. And last week, we read the last Mishnah of Sefer Yetzirah, where it was shown that the initial wisdom in Sefer Yetzirah is coming from Abraham, Avram Avinu. And there it says, we read this last week, but I'll just quickly review. When Avraham, our father, may he rest in peace, came, he looked, saw, understood, probed, and engraved, hewed, and carved. Now, these are the same language as the Mishnah we just read about how God created the world. The same type of ideas: engraved, carved, permuted, weighed, transformed. Now it's talking about Avram. He was successful in creation. Now this is talking about Avram. Immediately there was revealed to him the master of all. In other words, when Avram began probing into the inner dimensions of reality. He was able, like a image of God, as the Talmud says, God says, just like I create, you can create. And that is the connection between Ma'aseh Bereshit and Ma'aseh Merkavah. Ma'aseh Bereshit, God is the one doing the creating. Ma'aseh Merkavah, in a certain way, is us doing the creating. The Or Choser, the returning light. Now, speaking of permutations, the name Yisrael is 5 letters. Therefore, it has many, many different permutations, technically 120. Now, what's very important is that, and this is really an amazing idea, that in the entire Hebrew language of 3-letter roots, only 7 3-letter roots have meanings in all 7 permutations, all 6 permutations. Sometimes a 3-letter root only has a meaning that we know in 3 of them, 3 of the 6, or 4 or 5. Only 7 have in all 6. And here I'm just going to show you. It fits very well into the Magen Avraham, because the Magen Avraham is 6 triangles, and it has the middle space. So there's only 7 words. Now, the important thing for us is the root of the word Merkava, which is Bet Chaf Resh. For those who are taking notes, Bet Chaf Resh. That is the root of Merkava. And it is only one of 7 roots, like I said, that have meaning. And the fact that the word Merkava comes from one of these roots that has meaning in all 6 directions, we could relate in a certain way. If you remember, we spent a good amount of time talking about that in the vision of Ezekiel, he sees angels with 4 wings. And Isaiah sees angels with 6 wings. And we said that Isaiah's vision was on a higher level than Ezekiel's. And these 6 wings symbolically are connected to this idea of the Merkava is from a root that is one of 7 that has meaning in all 6 directions, all 6 meanings. For those who are interested, I'm going to name the other 7. So the first one is Bet Chaf Resh. That is from what Merkava comes from. We're not going to go into right now all of the different permutations. The other one is Bet Kuf Resh, Boker Tov. These 3 letters, when they're permuted in all 6 ways, all have meaning. The other one is Atzar, Ayin Sadi Resh, also meaning in all 6. Shin Pei Resh. This is actually the root for shofar. Comes from this 3-letter root. Mem Chet Resh, Machar, tomorrow. All 6 permutations of meaning. Ayin Shin Resh, Eser, 10. And the last one is Chet Sadi Resh, which is Chatzer, a courtyard. Now, what's interesting, and I'm just going to mention this in passing, if you paid attention, there's one letter that appears in all seven. Only one letter appears in all seven roots, and that's the letter Resh. In every single one that we mentioned, there is a Resh. And there's a very, very deep secret here, is that without going into depths about this, because we did previously, the number 6 is the secret of both time and space. Creation is in 6 days. So space is really an expanding cube, but it happens in 6 days. But space itself is a 6-directional expanding cube. And the letter Vav, which is 6, is the secret of time. Because when you put a Vav in the Torah before a verb, if the verb is written in the past, you understand it as the future. And if the verb is in the future, it changes it to the past. So the Vav, which is 6, is the secret of time and space. And there's something unique about the Resh that is connected in a certain way, because when we think of time, we think of a continuum of time, past, present, and future. But the idea of past, present, and future is also connected very, very much with beginning, middle, and end. Just like time on one level moves as a continuum, we know that the other types of time is circular time, spiral time, and all of time at once. We call that divine time, past, present, and future. But that even has a physical manifestation at the speed of light. There is no time. There is no past, present, or future. It's all unified. So the Resh is very interesting because Resh means Rosh, Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year. So the letter itself is connected to beginning. The numerical value of the 22 letters is 1 through 400. The letter Resh equals 200. It's the middle of the numerical count of the 22 letters. And even though it's not the last letter, it's very close to the end of the Aleph Bet. It's the third last letter. So the Resh has a quality of beginning, middle, and end, just like time does. And so it's interesting that the letter Resh is the only letter that appears in all of these 7 3-letter roots that all have meaning. Now, I do want to mention something that's connected to modern science, is that, so what do you do with the other permutations that don't have meaning? So in a certain way, we have to say that we don't as yet know their meanings. When they're combined in a different way, in our experience, in our perspective, we don't know what that 3-letter root means. Now, this is connected to something very, very fundamental about the DNA. The DNA is made up of strings and series of proteins. And I'm certainly not an expert in this field, but I know enough that they're in combinations. It's like a language. It's like a real language. And that language is translated into who we are physically. We are a composite, a manifestation of the DNA code that is within us. But what they have found is there's certain series of proteins that they know how to read, and they can translate it into the genetic code. And they've mapped it all out. It took many, many, many years, and now it's being used in medicine to cure people. But the vast majority of the protein language in the language of biologists is called junk proteins. They don't know what their combinations mean. And so it's very interesting. They're there. They're part of our DNA code. They must have some meaning, or what are they doing there? But we don't know. Just like in science, every generation discovers something new that it never knew before. Every time science gets to the point like, okay, I think we got it down now. We now understand how the universe was formed and when it was formed and how it was formed. And then all of a sudden, there's a whole new dimension that they never caught before. So someday they might understand what these proteins are. Just like someday we might understand what these three-letter roots are in a way that we don't know right now. Chaim. Now, I got a little bit off track. I was starting to talk about the different permutations of Yisrael. One of them is some of them are very, very well known. Shir Kale, the Song of God, or Yeshar Kale, straight to God. One of them is Yesh Ralah, Resh Lamed Aleph. What does that mean? Ralah is not really a word that we know, but it stands for a number. Resh is 200, Lamed is 30, Aleph is 1. So it means there are Yesh 231. What does that mean? What it means is there are 22 letters. If you combine them, each letter with each of the other letters, it means it's 22 times 21, because it's not combining with itself. So Aleph will combine with Bet, Aleph and Gimel, Aleph and Daled, etc. Bet with Aleph, Bet with Gimel, not with itself. So you come up with 22 times 21 equals 462. But that is if you do what's called face, panim, and achor. Face to face or face to back. In other words, you have Aleph connecting with Bet, but you also have Bet connecting with Aleph. So if you do both of those, you get 462. But in Sefer Yetzirah, it says, let's see if I can find it. I don't have it right in front of me. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, thank you. So it says in Sefer Yetzirah, it says like this, 22 foundational letters. He placed them in a circle, the He is God, like a wall with 231 gates. the circles oscillates back and forth. So what it means here, what does it mean that the circle oscillates? It means each of the letters is connecting to each of the other letters. And when you do it, again, you get 462 total combinations of just two letters. But if you only do it in one direction, meaning Aleph Bet and not Bet Aleph, it's 231. So that's one of the secrets of the permutation of Yisrael equals there are 231 gates. But what does this mean on a deeper level? What it means, it's telling us that we have infinite potential of creation. God is using the Hebrew letters to create the world and to maintain the world. And so the fact that Yisrael equals, excuse me, equals there are 231 means there are, now these are just two letters. Remember, we learned when you get to 7 letters, permuting them, it's 5,040 houses. But what happens if you do Aleph and Bet, Aleph, Bet, and Gimel, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dal? It's infinite. It's infinite, the combinations you can make. And that's the idea here is, it's telling us that a human being has infinite potential. Like they say, because we've used this idea of the junk proteins or 3-letter permutations that don't have meaning that we know. So we could say the same thing about the brain. Depending like who you listen to, some say we only use 5% of our brain. Some say up to 10%. But we're told that with all the science that they've done, 90% of the brain is still a mystery. And that, I mean, can you imagine if a human being, what we've developed in the world, especially this last, let's say, 100 years of technology, using 5% of our brain? That's what we said before. The brain is the most complicated entity in the physical universe. It's virtually infinite in potential. Now, probably the most important and famous manifestation of this whole idea of permutations is what's called the Tikkunei Zohar. The Zohar is made up of actually many, many different parts to the Zohar. One of the most used and studied is what's called the Tikkunei Zohar. Tikkun means rectification, the fixings of the Zohar. What are these fixings? There's 70 chapters, and it's all based on one word, Bereshit, in the beginning. The whole Tikkunei Zohar is based on this one word. It goes to say there are many offshoots of these teachings. But the basis of Tikkunei Zohar is bringing different permutations of the word Bereshit. Bereshit is 6 letters. So in theory, there are 720 different combinations of those letters. It does not attempt to do that, but it brings a couple of handful of permutation and then explains them. And it goes on off the subject plenty, but still, it's the entire book is based on this idea of permutations. Later, one of the most famous Kabbalists of the last 1,000 years, the most important one was the Arizal. But preceding him was a figure called Avram Abulafia, Rabbi Avram Abulafia. He in many ways, he was a very, very unique individual and controversial. And one of the reasons he was controversial was that he developed a method of meditating using permutations of Hebrew words and verses. And he created a very, very complicated, remember we used the word complicated to understand Ma'aseh Merkavah. In a certain way, the Tikkun Zohar, it's dealing with the word Bereshit, which is Ma'aseh Bereshit, the workings of creation, but its methodology is Ma'aseh Merkavah. And so Avram Abulafia began teaching. He never had a large amount of students. And he became very, very controversial because he was teaching deep methods of meditation, almost all of them based on permutations of God's name, of words in the Torah. And it was considered very, very controversial. One of the reasons it was so controversial was that many people felt that he was revealing an authentic meditative path that had been quite hidden for many, many generations. And they were nervous, upset that it was being taught in such an open way. And so in his lifetime, he was shunned by the religious establishment. But what it turns out is that he had many students who went on and became great teachers of Kabbalah in their own right and acceptable. For practically 1,000 years, all of Avram Abulafia's books were never published. They were only in manuscript form. That's how controversial he was. Nonetheless, it became more and more accepted that all these other people are quoting him. Some are using his name, but most of them were not. But it was clear where they were getting this from. And so I'm just mentioning all of this because part of the controversy was that his method of permuting the letters, he turned it not into an intellectual exercise, but into a meditative form. And then he claimed that he could reach prophetic experience through this method. That was probably the most controversial because he was saying that he could prophesy based on this method of permuting letters. Like I said, later it became mainstreamed in a certain way. But he as a figure, and he did a number of pretty wild things in his life, including going to the Pope and wanting to have the Pope renounce Christianity. It was a whole thing, a story about him. If you're interested, Google Avraham Abulafia. Now I'm bringing him because of his connection to permutations, and I see it's clear that I was not able to finish the series tonight. There will be one more class, but I want to finish with some of the teachings of Avram Abulafia. So a lot of his combination of letters, permutations was connected to gematria. And 500 years later, the Arizal did the same thing. So he was onto something authentic. There's no doubt about it. And now his books are printed. They are printed, and I went to the new Israel National Library. Anyone who comes to Jerusalem, it is well worth going to see. It's from the outside, it doesn't look all that impressive, but on the inside, it's amazing. It's a circle. It's a circle. And it's, I don't know, 4 or 5 stories, and the feeling in there is actually very mystical. So I was in there once, and I found an entire shelf of Avram Abulafia's books that are now in print. I was unaware that so many were now in print. It was an entire shelf of his books in print. I'm just going to bring one idea. It's very important to what we've been learning. So the gematria of the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, is 913. And he said something that it wasn't easy to understand. I only understand it through Rav Ginsburg's teachings. And he said that the gematria of Bereshit equals Shlosha Devarim Yachad. 3 things together. Shlosha Devarim Yachad equals 913, those words. And apparently he didn't explain in great detail what he meant. Later, people came to understand. And so the way Rav Ginsburg explains it, it's actually fairly simple what he was getting at. And that is, the first verb in the Torah is bara. Bereshit bara Elokim. In the beginning, God created. The word for created, the first verb, is bara. 3 letters. But that same 3 letters is in the word Bereshit. In fact, the first 3 letters is bara. So already we see something deep here. In the beginning already is the verb of create, but then it's manifest in a more outward way. In Bereshit, it's still, call it in not yet revealed. And then it becomes revealed. So Bereshit begins bara, and the last 3 letters are Shin Yud Tav. And this is one of the main permutations in the Tikkunei Zohar. The Tikkunei Zohar, the word Shin Yud Tav in Aramaic means 6. And so the Tikkunei Zohar read it, he created with 6. Bara, 6. So here, first of all, Bereshit itself is 6 letters, meaning that the 6 days of creation are already present in the word Bereshit. The 6 days of creation are a revelation, a result, an effect of the first word Bereshit. But Rav Ginsburg explains, I mean, that is deep enough. But here is the root of the idea of 3-letter roots can be manifest in 6 ways. And that's what it means, bara, bara sheet, bara 6, is that the word bara, again, is 3 letters, the first 3 letters of the Torah, and it's the first independent verb. But those 3 letters can be permuted in 6 ways. So the 6 days of creation are like the 6 permutations of those first 3 letters of Bereshit. So that it's just a very deep idea of, and this is very, very connected with the whole idea of the Big Bang, is that everything came from an initial point. This is what's called, we began this class, yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing. Well, that original point, science it cannot explain it whatsoever, how a singular point, it's called a singularity, how a singular point of, really we can't explain it in a physical way, could create. Now I have to say, for many years I've been quoting the number of universe of galaxies at approximately 10 billion galaxies. I just saw a new YouTube scientific explanation that they now think that number is totally inadequate, and there could be up to 1 billion galaxies. Now, each galaxy is bigger than we can imagine and is farther away than we can imagine, and has approximately, most galaxies have around 10 billion stars. Our sun is just one tiny little star in the Milky Way. We can't even really comprehend the Milky Way, let alone 10 billion galaxies, let alone 1 billion galaxies. And all of it came supposedly from this little point. So the seed. So that is Yeshvan, that is the secret of Ma'aseh Bereshit, and it's all in the word Bereshit. All 6 days of creation, and the word Shabbat is in the word Bereshit. So you have the 6 days of creation plus Shabbat already in Bereshit. And all of this was hinted to by Avram Abulafia when he said the numerical value of Bereshit is 3 Shlosha Devarim Yachad. But along with that is the whole concept, and I'm not going to go into depths of this because we had a whole series of classes on the Sfirot. Everyone, please go out and order the new book, the Sfirot and Meditation, where the idea of the Sfirot lining up in 3 lines is crucial to understand what our world is made of and what it means. So this is also hinted to in Avram Abulafia when he said Shlosha Devarim Yachad are the 3 lines of the Sfirot and their inter-inclusion to Yachad, 3 things together. And this is also the beginning of Pirkei Avot, that the world stands on 3 things: Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim. On Torah, service, and deeds of goodness. And there are many, many, many other things that have to do with 3 that Avram Abulafia is alluding to here. Okay. As I said in the beginning of the class, I wasn't sure we would get through everything. We got through half. So next week will be the final class in the series on the Merkava.